So today we're going over how to mix up a base set of mud compound for doing drywall jointing as well as patching screw holes and things like that. Most of what I've already done is the majority of the project. A few tape seams, a massive joint seam between some ceiling tiles and some sheetrock. All that's going to get covered by a heavy coat of texture because we're moving all these tiles, and the plywood above it would be an extraneously unnecessary time consumption and money consumption. So what the owners are wanting to do is just put sheetrock, match it to it, join them together, call it good. What we're going to do for that, just as a note, is a rollout texture. So a rollout texture is where you take paint roller brush. Usually you want to get the ones that are heavier compound, so a little bit thicker, and you mix up your mud into your tray, put it into a paint tray, whatever, and roll this out onto it until you get the appropriate amount of mud you want. And how much mud you put on this will determine how thick texturing is up on the ceiling or the walls, wherever you're doing it. This is significantly fast, easy, doesn't require a compressor, spray gun, so much faster than knockdown. I suggest this if you're going for just an easy fix to something like this, because this is just generic rental in the middle of the city. Isn't worth the money to completely tear it apart and do everything new. The consistency of the mud is also going to determine how thick that coat is and how much it stands up or doesn't, as well as how much you press on it. But let's get to the meat of this video, which is mixing up some mud compound. So as you can see here, we've got some mud compound in our tray, and right here on my left, we've got straight out of the box mud compound. You can kind of see that it's kind of thick. It's got a few airy bubbles in it. If you were to move this around, it'll kind of move like clay almost, a very moist clay. Whereas on the right, what we have is a fully mixed compound of mud. So same box, all the same stuff. I'm using general purpose joint compound because I'm doing base layers of joint compounding, so I want the really sticky stuff, which is the general purpose. As well, it's better for doing patch fill work for things like screw holes, nail holes, mollies in the wall. So what you're going to want to do to get this mud to a workable consistency that will be the best application is you never want to use this stuff out of the box like this. What you want to do is, if you're going for a very basic setup for it, you want it really sticky, you want it really thick, you're filling some bigger holes, you're going to take your mud knife. I've got a 6-inch aluminum blade. No, this isn't my aluminum set. A 6-inch mud knife. So depending on what you're doing is going to determine the size of the knife you're using. I'm just doing some small stuff, so I'm just using my 6er. For really small stuff, a 4 would be better. But you're going to take this and you're basically going to smooth the mud against the side of your tray. And as you're doing this, you'll start to notice it's starting to get smoother, creamier. Basically what you're doing is exfoliating the pockets of dry and moisture into each other inside the mud. Keep going. Get a nice creamy texture to it. So this is what you want to spread with, because this spreads smooth evenly and it reduces the air bubbles that will be caught in the mud. The more water you add, the less air bubbles there will be, and obviously the more runny it'll be. As you can see on this stuff over here, it's a decent bit runnier, and that's because I added water to it, because I need to be a little bit more runny to do some of the things I'm doing. And the consistency of your mud is really going to determine how well it works. You want more runny stuff to do a nice thin film across something. For example, when you come over here and you're working on this corner, you've already got your base coat down with your tape, you've already sanded that down, you're going for your second coat. You're going to want it to be a creamier consistency that smooths really easy, because you want to go over this. You're going to want it to go really smooth across it, and take your time to make sure it comes out fairly smooth in the finish. The smoother it is in the finish, the less sanding you have to do. For really nice finish work, I usually do 3 coats: base coat with tape, filling coat to fill on any of the air bubbles from the thicker coat that I used for the tape, and then the final one after my second sand is just a filler to catch any of those tiny little air bubbles that have surfaced. Big step in making sure you catch all of those last little bubbles if you're going a 3 coat or even your 2 coat is to use an air compressor or a shop vac or anything that blows air and blow the surface off, because you'll find that a bunch of little dust pockets have been made from where you sanded. You want to clear all those out because those will get mud over them. And then when you do that next sand, those pockets of dust will still be there, and they don't really go away until you start painting, and they'll start showing up as you paint it, which as well you shouldn't paint onto a surface that hasn't had sanded mud cleaned off of it. So this video is getting a little bit long, but this is just a base intro on starting to mix joint compound, some of the ways to use joint compound. Pretty proud of this joint right here. This is almost perfectly smooth. There's only one real imperfection, and that's this guy here. Somehow I got a bubble in my tape. Really the only way I found to fix those post doing an entire coat is to cut the bubble open, fill in under the tape, press it smooth, and do what you can. I'm probably going to put a little bit more over this, but again, we're doing heavier texture in this entire unit, so it's not a big deal to finish everything down to a fine tee. That's what I'm used to, but to get this job done faster, being that I'm working at 6:30 at night after my day job. Yeah, so if you guys got any comments, questions, anything else relating to the subject, comment it over, send me a direct message. I've been doing stuff like this for 12 years now, so I've got a lot of tips and tricks on how to make this go smoother, faster, easier, cost less is the big one. Yeah, subscribe below, supposedly below, sometimes it's above, no, it's below.